yeah, there's, oh,
Well, we better stop talking about work now.
It'll tell you that we're being recorded. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Hefty. I am a content strategy analyst for the Sun Belt region, which includes Oklahoma City. I am based in Colorado, but I'm working primarily with you guys in Austin, and then our other markets in the region in Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, and Oklahoma. And my colleague Kelly is in Des Moines, and I'll let her introduce herself here.
Hi there, I'm Kelly Leonard. I do the same thing that Jen does, but for the Plains region, which is mostly for Des Moines. And then I work with all of the regions kind of west of the Mississippi, though more than that too. With folks in, kind of our position in helping promote discussions around audience and strong digital content strategy. So look forward to getting to work with you all, and I'll be monitoring the chat. So feel free to shoot a note, as Dish said there, and I'll turn it back over to you, Jen.
All right, so I'm gonna try to share my screen here. Let's get this set up. Oh, my Zoom always disappears for a second.
It's starting to share, it looks like. There we go.
Okay, can you see
Business.
the presentation here?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, so let me adjust my screen a little bit here. So yeah, so today we're going to talk about how do we improve our relationship with our readers. We're going to talk about the funnel. We're going to talk about some target audiences, not all today, in 3 sessions. We won't overload it. But how do we increase loyalty, get people to support our work is kind of the main message there. So there's one leaves falling because it's fall now. So why are we here? So, the long and short of it is our business model has changed. There are fewer of us and there are more digital competitors. And so that means that every single story we write has to be worth it. We don't have time to write throwaways or things that are just for print anymore, and we really need to learn how to do fewer things better. And our business model used to be, we'll get into this a little bit more, but driven by clicks and page views and volume. And now we are shifting a little bit as the advertising landscape changes to valuing loyalty and digital subscriptions as we try to figure out what's sustainable for our future. So we're going to talk about who our target audiences are, where do we see the most potential for growth, what do they want in news, how do they find us, and how do we keep them around. So yeah, not everybody reads the same thing for the same reasons. We're going to put names to our audience groups just so that we have this shared common language of how we talk about our content. And we have a shared understanding. And so that is kind of really what the foundation of this is about, is creating a common language so that we can talk about our work. How do we make sure our journalism is the most impactful that it can be? And how do we talk about our successes? So how are we doing? It's kind of complicated, right? So we talked about that business model. So like we said, it's not that we have a viewership problem. This graph here shows the past 4 years across the USA Today Network local sites. And you can see that our unique visitors to our sites is steadily growing, about 0.5% each month. That yellow bar there is the coronavirus spike. So, in times of major breaking news, more folks are seeking us out, which is great to see. So we're generally adding readers, and we've worked really hard to do that. And that's kind of where that clicks mentality and that volume mentality came in. And it has helped grow our volume. The problem is that we're getting more readers, but they're spending less of their time with us, and they're less loyal. So in this chart, you can kind of see that 4 years ago, readers on average were spending about 3 minutes with us. They're also reading more stories per visit. And now they're down to about 2 minutes. and are reading fewer stories per visit. So they're kind of less sticky. So where we used to talk about quantity of the viewers, we are going to start talking about quality. It's not just about clicks, it's about finding those readers that will come back to us and then eventually support us. So as we talk about that business model too, ads still support us. They're still important to what we do, but it's volatile. And we are competing against major giants in the digital advertising revenue, like the landscape, like Google and Facebook. And it's volatile, it's not stable. And so you can see here that overall, this is ad value in millions. It's on the trend is on the decline here. And you can see that in April after coronavirus, it kind of hit a low. And it's starting to rebound, but not at the levels that we saw even just a year ago. So what does that mean for us? Well, I like to talk about how as journalists, we don't have a lot of control over the advertising revenue or who's buying display ads on our website, but what we can help control and where we can help our future, because I think we all rally around this, that we're tired of our newsroom shrinking and what can we do to help? And so our bright spot here is direct community support from subscribers and increasing reader revenue. So you can see that digital only subscribers have really grown, which is really great to see. It's people valuing our work and wanting to support it. And not only that, but the average rate that subscribers are paying has continued to grow. You've probably heard this before, but as a company, our goal is to hit 1 million digital subscribers across the company by the year's end. And we're getting pretty close to that. And that goes a long way toward making our journalism sustainable and ensuring that we are able to pay for the work that we do. So here's the rub a little bit. We're growing digital subscribers, but we also have trouble keeping them. The churn rate is high. People let their subscriptions lapse or they cancel. And so what you kind of see in this chart here, which is a little bit complex, so I'm sorry about that, it's a little messy. But the gray bar is the digital start. So that's new digital subscribers. The blue bars down below are the stops. So the number of people who are stopping their subscriptions or they're letting it lapse. And then the yellow line is the net. So we're still net positive, but we need to really pay attention to not only how do we get new subscribers and grow that subscriber base, but how are we making sure that we are keeping them around. So that brings us to today. So we're going to talk about 3 different things in 3 of these sessions. And the first one, what we'll talk about today, is to understand how readers read and what they read at different stages of the funnel, from new visitor to loyal subscriber, and how we can kind of advance them toward a subscription with our work and making sure our important work has impact. In future sessions, we're going to cover what digital readers want from us, who are our target audiences, why do they seek out news, and what are they looking for? What kind of stories are they looking for? How do they like to consume news? And then later we're going to talk to you about what makes readers want to subscribe, how do we keep them coming back, and how do we, not only make sure that they're sticking around, but that they're supporting us and they value our work. So I'm going to pause here to see if there's any immediate questions before we kind of dive into the funnel.
Nothing in the chat yet, so I'd encourage anyone to unmute if you have a question to get started.
All right, well, we'll keep going, and if you have questions, we'll chat about them as we keep going on. So the funnel, it's kind of corporate speak, it's kind of buzzy, like every news organization is talking about a funnel right now, but we're really going to break it down. So it's thinking about how the reader interacts with us. How did they find us? Is this their first visit ever? Is this their first visit in a long time? Are they someone who comes to us once a week? Are they a logged in subscriber who check us every day? Are they seeing us in Facebook? Are they coming to us from search? And how do they find us, and what are their habits like? So the top of the funnel readers are, they're new or casual. They're usually coming to us via search or social. at the very top of that funnel, the widest mouth, how we're, and growing volume is still important. We have to bring people into the funnel so that we can hopefully get them to subscribe, but they're broad, they're pretty fickle. They may or may not have brand affinity with us. Probably at that very top stage of the funnel, they don't. They're clicking on a story because the headline looks interesting and it showed up in their newsfeed, or they Googled something and we're the first result, and they're not clicking on it because of our name. If you get a little bit below that first level, they might follow us on social media. They might be like, oh, the Oklahoman, I know them. And that's why they influence their decision to click on something on search. They may or may not follow us, but they're not loyal yet, and they're still very casual. Coming to us when something really piques their interest. They're not coming to daily. So, sorry, I'm gonna mute some folks here. So in that previous business model where we were clicks, 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 this is the part of the funnel we paid attention to, and we kind of ignored the bottom half. And so this is kind of where this strategy differs. So the bottom half of the funnel are more and more loyal. There's a typo on this slide, I'm just seeing. And they're more likely to subscribe. So these are people who probably do follow us on social. They might have our homepage bookmarked. At the very, very bottom there, they are subscribers, they are logged in, they probably get our newsletters, they're checking in with us daily. And so these people, not only are they logging in and consuming the work themselves, they're probably sharing it with their friends, and they're talking about it, and they're helping us to drive that subscription revenue. So there is no one funnel. This one that we're talking about here is kind of broken into 4 steps. A lot of newsrooms sometimes talk about it in 3 steps. They kind of talk about top funnel, mid funnel, bottom of the funnel. You could break it into 17 steps. I probably wouldn't, because that gets a little overcomplicated, but you can kind of break it into any different steps, but the point is the same. How do we get people in, and then how do we get them to subscribe? We use a funnel shape because that's the shared language of our company, and it is becoming more of a shared language in the industry. And so as we talked about building that common ground, but you can see at the right here, you could put it in a circle if you wanted to, trying to get people to do the next step. So think of and this isn't unique to newspapers, so think of a store you go to. So for me, it's Target, right? I go to Target and they're like, hey, you shop here, do you want to join our rewards program? And if I don't shop there a lot, I'm probably like, no, I don't want your email. I don't want 9,000 more emails about your stuff. But if I'm like, you know what, I'm here a lot. Yeah, I want the rewards. I'll use them. I'll sign up. Well, and then they're going to ask me the next time, well, do you want to sign up for a red card? And it's going to really depend on how often I'm using it and the value I see if I'm going to take that next step or not. And if I'm not using it, I'm not going to. And so that's kind of the same concept for the funnel here. One thing I like to kind of point out here on the funnel, which we'll talk about a little bit more, is another analogy for this is kind of like a relationship, right? So at the top of the funnel, you just met somebody. It's like way too soon to be like, hey, do you want to get married? It's like that's akin to asking them to subscribe on their first visit. They know nothing about you. Why should they trust you? They don't know what you do. You haven't built that relationship. As you get toward the middle of the funnel, you're like, hey, we're friends. Maybe we want to hang out some more. Maybe you want to consider, maybe we want to go on a date or a couple of dates. And that's where you're like, hey, do you want to subscribe to our newsletter? And you're getting people to build habits and get used to you. And that might be where you ask them to subscribe. And then at the bottom, we're in a committed relationship. Thank you for loving me. Please don't leave. Is kind of where you're at the bottom of the funnel there. So that's another way you can kind of think about that and how we're targeting the audiences. So before we get into what they're reading, let's take a look at how they're reading and when. So again, the very top of the funnel, they've maybe been here once or twice a month. So they don't have a habit. They're coming when they need something. They're mobile first. They're driven by search and social. Like I said, they want to find out something. They most often visit in the evenings. And this is kind of true by that 3 to 14 days. So maybe they're visiting us once a week, maybe. And they're still just, they're seeking out an answer to their questions. The more loyal visitors are both mobile and desktop. readers. They'll check in on the homepage, they'll check in on their newsletters, make sure that they're caught up on the news of the day. They recognize our brand. If 5 news sites show up in a Google search result, they might click on us because they know us and they're familiar with us. And they often visit in the mornings. So what do we do with all of this? We want to create content for readers at all stages of the funnel across all of our beats. And something I like to say here is that different beats sometimes live in different areas of the funnel. So a good example is breaking news, right? Breaking news often lends itself to top of the funnel audience, new audience, wide audience, things kind of going viral, topics of conversation. That doesn't mean that a breaking news reporter never writes something that appeals to subscribers or goes in depth about like what crime means to the community or community safety. All beats work up and down the funnel. You probably just have a home in one place. So, you know, maybe 20% of your time is going to new audience, 60% of the time is in the middle, and another 20% of the time is targeted towards subscriber only. And once you guys get into Presto, we'll have continuing talks too about premium content and what content do we lock only to subscribers. And that is one of those added benefits to keep folks coming back. We want to create content on specific topics to help readers move through the funnel and leverage programming and optimization. So as we were talking about in that relationship analogy, how we package a story might depend on where it falls in the funnel and kind of who we're targeting with that. And we want to think about our key coverage areas to make sure we're offering readers at different stages of the funnel the things that they're looking for and that might entice them to come back. So to jump into that a little bit more, our team has analyzed hundreds of topics and headlines against each other for these kind of groups in the funnel. And to keep it simple, these are topic-based. So we looked at what was popular with infrequent visitors and subscribers and logged in subscribers. So there are some topics that everybody tends to read. And we will come back to how this is future sessions, how we create audience-focused topics for each of these groups and how we help people understand the world around them and how the news really impacts them. So all readers tend to they love breaking news. Crime is the highest rated topic across all types of visitors. And this has a big asterisk on it because especially as we think about diversity and equity in our coverage, it's important that that crime coverage reflects the state of our community. It's not crime, let's cover more crimes, let's cover the wacky crimes. No, we need to cover what we can do responsibly and what really makes an impact in the community. What is the crime reporting that is of significance and not just police blotters? Big name sports. Sports is the second highest volume topic across all types of visitors. Sports is one of those beats that works up and down the funnel almost equally. You know, your analysis pieces and your columns are probably targeted toward a more loyal audience. You might lock some of that to subscribers. Your game coverage, your takeaways, those are very top of the funnel plays. Weather events like snow, storms, hurricanes. I say that with an asterisk too, because if it's going to be 75 and beautiful and nothing of note is happening today, I mean that, you know, those stories don't tend to perform as well. But if there are tornadoes or things that people need to know for their lives, this is where we talk about that understanding and the impacts of how decisions that are made impact our readers' lives. So taxes and local politics, policy and elections, how do they impact me? How do they impact my loved ones? How do these decisions being made impact my finances? That sort of thing. All readers like education. Education is one of those beats that's kind of education and public safety, education and budget and spending, education and so, you know, the topics vary from fraud to salaries to trends to accountability. Immigration stories that break down barriers, they range from breaking to issue oriented again and commentary. Everybody hates traffic, but everybody wants to read about it, especially if it's going to screw up my commute when we were in a time when we left our houses, which we don't anymore, and road constructions and delays. And everybody likes dogs. less so with cat lovers, but people like cute animals, especially in times of crisis. I can see Richard's face and he's appalled about the cats. So thinking about the readership does involve some common sense. So we'll kind of go through these a little bit more here. So to summarize pretty quickly. So your new readers, they're mobile first. They access us during evening hours. They favor breaking news, trending news, big name stories, education and social and taxes. Education stories is their taxes and social issues. That could be said for other policy decisions as they relate to social issues. Traffic, growth and development. They're fickle. They might not always be locally focused. Sometimes they want to look at something on a statewide level. And they're not, by that, yeah, not super hyper local necessarily. These middle of the funnel readers, they come to us on desktop and mobile. They follow breaking, they care about breaking. They visit multiple times a month, probably once a week, more as they're getting down the funnel. They're starting to build habits. They probably follow us on social. They probably subscribe to a newsletter or two. They like to read talkers, have quick updates on recurring themes. They're super interested in passion topics in the community, which we'll get into a little bit further. Dining and entertainment. They may not have as much patience for news delivered in a traditional way. They might not want to read a 60-inch story. I mean, they will if you entice them, and we'll get into those, get into some more examples there. But as we kind of talk about that, you know, dining, education, those kind of things sometimes are, dining especially is kind of a passion topic everywhere. But I live in Colorado, I live in Fort Collins. We have like more breweries per capita than anywhere. And so beer is a passion topic in our area. So is outdoors, hiking, biking, things to do. I'm gonna pause for a minute and you can just unmute and shout them out if you want, but any passion topics for Oklahoma City that, or the Oklahoma in general that come to mind?
Military is a big one. Lots of military bases, and I think that's a topic a lot of our readers are interested in.
It's a great example. Someone in the last session brought up marijuana as that was becoming legalized too. So yeah, and we'll talk more about defining those and areas on the beats. So subscribers are near subscribers. They're savvy, they're politically engaged. They love hyperlocal content. They're looking for thoughtful enterprisers, watchdog pieces, in-depth stories that provide context, solutions. How do they get more involved? And you know, they're looking for that analysis and they're looking for that in-depth, and that's why they come to us, and that's why they value our coverage. So we're going to walk through a couple of examples. So you might have this is how you might have one topic and how we can create content that meets the needs of all these various readers and reaches all stages of the funnel. And something we will talk about repeatedly is that a story need not only have one URL. I mean, maybe you do have that in-depth story, and then you have 5 things to know about this sidebar that you break out, or you focus on one bit of it that you break out into another story, so we can target different stages of the audience funnel. So in this example here, a well-known local millionaire is entering a congressional race. So the new readers want to know who she is. This is the story that goes wide when the news comes out that she is running. They see it on search and then they Google it and they're like, who is this woman? What do I need to know about her? That traffic boom means we're reaching people we don't often see. They're new readers and they're coming into our site. These mid-funnel readers, which we often refer to as prospects, and that we could get them to subscribe someday, they're interested in a little more. They might want you to know what are her positions in that nutshell. What does she think about the environment? What does she think about the oil and gas industry? How does she feel about women's rights? You know, racial inequity. What are her stances on these platforms? They may have already heard or seen that, hey, she's running, but they want to dive in a little bit deeper. So how can we give them the maximum amount of information in the quickest way possible, the shortest amount of time. And then if we go down a level further, your subscribers are people who are nearly subscribed. So they come to us a lot. They're looking for that more thoughtful enterpriser on why millionaires are called to politics. What does the political landscape look like? What's the history of women in politics in the area? And is there more representation there? Or a thoughtful profile about this woman and her accomplishments. One more example we can walk through here is there's a deadly traffic jam that clogs a key thoroughfare. So the new readers, they want to know there's been a jam up. They want to know that it was fatal. They want to know the live traffic impacts. What roads do I need to avoid on my way home? The mid-funnel prospects want a little bit more context. So maybe something that's alt form on what are the worst intersections in our county or city? How many fatal traffic crashes have we had this year? Or the tale of the hero who really tried to help in that situation on the crash, or the story of the people involved. And then subscribers are civically engaged, right? So this is where we talk about the solutions. They want to know, is this a recurring problem? So you might have written that alt form on here's the 5 most dangerous intersections in Oklahoma City. Well, they want to know, what do we do about it? And what is our government doing about it? And how do we fix this problem? So yeah, an enterprise are exploring the trend, and infrastructure changes could be something that they want to look at. You could look at fatal crashes over time, or more people dying on our roads. What is being done about that? So those are some things that a subscriber might want to read. So here's a quick exercise. So based on kind of everything we've flown through a little quickly here, think about 2 stories that you wrote, produced, edited. Where might they land on this funnel? What could you do to sharpen the focus for that piece of the funnel? And what else could you do? What's another opportunity you might have? So let's say you think that your story that you wrote was kind of mid-funnel. Well, if I wanted to target that toward a new audience, what could I have done? Or what's another angle I could take? Or subscribers, what's an angle I could take? And what would you, there it is, 1 step below or 1 step above. So I'm gonna give us a couple minutes and then we'll talk about some examples. And I will just warn you that if people don't volunteer, Dish is like not afraid to volunteer somebody. So that's everybody's fair warning. And I'll go back here to this example slide just to have that up.
I think I've got one whenever you're ready.
Sure. We can talk through it while other people are still thinking.
Yeah, so I wrote a story about how American Airlines decided that it would keep one of its routes that it had previously said it would close down. And it was to a small city. It's the smallest commercial airport in the state. They just got like 1 flight a day going in and out of Stillwater. And obviously that was probably more top of the funnel. Both that story and the one that preceded it about them deciding to cancel their flights to that city. So anyway, that's more top of the funnel. To sharpen it, probably talk a little bit more about maybe the activity of that airport in the state, how long they've been in that city, and who uses that particular flight. Because I would imagine a lot of people need to go from Stillwater to Dallas every day. But it was something that American Airlines had for like 6 years. So the question begs why.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right that breaking news piece is kind of top of the funnel. It's something that people will be interested in. They'll see it on social, they'll search for it. I think it's smart to think about as you push down the funnel, who is it impacting? How are those people making that trip now? What are the alternatives? Another angle which you kind of touched on was the airport itself and what is this going to do economically? Looking at that, and then exactly toward that mid funnel, it's the people story could be a mid funnel, or American Airlines just pulled this flight out. Here's 5 things to know, or here's what we know and what we don't know about what happened, and what's next for this airport.
And I'm sure someone has come up with some data, maybe probably the local Chamber of Commerce, about what that flight has meant to that local community. That would probably be the very bottom of the funnel. Really only people who are interested in Stillwater's business development specifically, and more generally, people in economic development or who have an interest in it, who would care to read about how an airline affects the commerce of a small city.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, the impacts on the local community and what our community leaders doing about it. Anybody else have an example they want to share or talk through?
I'll call on someone.
He's unmuted.
How about Brother Mize? Any thoughts? You're going to be my first victim. I'll call on others, though.
I just knew it. I could feel it. Well, the last thing I worked on personally was the Parade of Homes features for the real estate section. And one of them was a feature on a house that's the proceeds of the sale will go to benefit 5 children's charities. And then the other major thing I did associated with that was just a list of all the best overalls and the best overall winners in the contest among the 12 different price points. So my first thought is that goes toward the bottom of the funnel in the first place, the people that I think it does, that are already regular readers or subscribers, and anybody that's in the housing market. And as I've reported over the past months, it's crazy. It's a crazy time in the housing market. And so the assumption that people would look to us for that type of reporting because they're in the market, I don't know how it fits into this new model, to be frankly, but in the past, thinking about the paper first, that was intentional. We wanted to hold on to them and keep them. If I had time, and I have in the years past, I've done more reporting on the recipients of the charity recipients than I have the nuts and bolts of the housing. And I just couldn't do it that way this time, but I think that would broaden the interest of it and take it out of real estate entirely. I mean, you're talking about children's charities, 5 different children's charities, which could have been spotlighted. I mentioned them, but I didn't this year. I wasn't able to concentrate on them, on them as much as I have. And I'm rambling because I don't know what else to say. My deadline was just a while ago, so my brain's fried. So.
That's fair. It's the afternoon. I mean, I think that list is kind of top of the funnel. I mean, it's, people, that curiosity about other people's homes is something that's kind of universal, and it brings people in. Austin had a big success about one house that's just super weird. And they're like, that weird house on Lake Travis that everybody knows. Mm-hmm. That was featured in the Parade of Homes, and that story just went berserk, and the gallery to go with it, because everybody knows what you're talking about. And so focusing on that kind of unique angle could be another way for top of the funnel, the novelty of it, the top. Mm-hmm. And then I do think, like you said, the charities, that kind of pushes you down and who's impacted and why it's about more than just the houses. So,
mm-hmm. I am going to have a photo gallery. I'm going to ask a photo gallery to be created. I've got 12 beautiful houses, and people like looking at houses. So
they absolutely do. Kelly, you have anything to add there?
I think you're spot on. And, one of the things to think about with that sort of thing is to take it beyond the sort of the winners of a show like that, home show, what are the, and this is, you can probably get better than a list, but off the top of my head, the 5 most unusual things you'll see in this year's Parade of Homes, basement bar, indoor basketball court, whatever those sort of really highfalutin amenities tend to draw audience and will also help you with that sort of top of funnel curiosity that then you can pull the readers in and say, oh, well, yeah, these homes are cool. This tour is great. This is how it's helping kids. So kind of connect the dots for them too, to like be able to say, if you're interested in this topic, you may also be interested in how it's helping our community. So you can kind of do that through linking in the story. Outside of that, I would just say too, a number of markets, Detroit, Des Moines, Indy, Cincy, have all had success with what is sometimes called home envy sort of things. We call it Mansion Monday in Des Moines, where essentially, we just we work with the real estate companies as a partnership to highlight a really cool home. And this week's photo gallery has had like 600,000 page views. Not super, high quality journalism there, but it's but it's something that draws our readers in and then hopefully entices them to look at more of our content while they're there.
Yep. We have some features like that haven't been re-examined in a while. So I think that's something for me to keep in mind right now. I mean, the things that we're doing need to be tweaked for this new reality that we're talking about, or this unfolding reality. So thank you.
Thank you for that great example. I think we have time for one more, and just because Jenny said when we logged on, hey, there are bosses on this call, I think we should pick on Ryan, because why should the boss not be involved?
Or Jeff, one of the two, one of those two.
Either one of you want to hop in and volunteer?
Is Jeff even actually, is he there or is he just monitoring?
Don't try to pass the buck now.
Now I'll go. So we talked this morning about a story that we're actually working on for today about the Norman school system, and they're kind of waffling back and forth between virtual learning and in-person learning at the school. We talked about it during our morning meeting. And the original idea that was pitched was just about kind of that one school and the challenges that some of the teachers and students and the administration are facing, which in itself is probably pretty top of the funnel. You're only getting a few folks there that are interested in Norman, instead of looking at the broader picture of school districts across the metro, across the state, across the country that are facing similar issues, that have fought this battle and have moved on, or they're in the middle of it, or they're just starting it. So it was a story that we talked about that we're still working on, frankly, that if we hadn't had that conversation, we'd have run it like we were going to, and we'd move on down the road, and nobody would thought the less of it. Other than that, it probably wouldn't have gotten a whole lot of traffic. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that hyper local, let's focus on what this one school district is doing, it's for very loyal readers in that particular community. And that just narrows your focus, which doesn't necessarily mean that that's not something you do when you go in depth, but broadening that a little bit, pulling it up a little bit more. That's one example that I think we can come back to as we talk about our target audiences, but that's a shared experience. And it's not just one school district that's doing this. It's many school districts are grappling with this. Parents are grappling with this. And so, who are the people that we can showcase and target? And I know that something else we've talked about on schools that brings it up even to top of the funnel are those closings and what's happening and what are the COVID cases, and that kind of blog style updates on what's happening in the schools, and then taking that down one story that we talked about here about what's the impact and what does that look like in schools in our area. All right, so key takeaways here are not everybody reads the stories the same way. Not everybody's looking for the same thing, which is something we will get into more. One topic may have multiple URLs. It may have multiple audience opportunities. Every beat works up and down the funnel. Like I said, your home might be at the bottom of the funnel most of the time, but you're still going to have breaking news and top of the funnel things. And your coach and others might ask you, this is a great subscriber story, but how do we also target middle of the funnel audience or one of our target audiences?
Hey, Jen, this is a good point, I think, to address a couple questions that have popped into the chat, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Where you totally wrap things up here. Dale asked, are these metrics, or I guess concepts to some degree, just applicable to text-based content, or does it translate to photo galleries and videos as well?
It definitely
I'm on a
translates.
call. Is it urgent?
Sorry, Mackenzie? I don't know if he's really there or not. Nope.
No, sorry about that.
Okay. It definitely applies to different formats too. And so we'll talk about target audiences and what they look for. But sometimes a video is a good top of the funnel entry point for social, for some readers, for some stories, depending on what the video is. Like, a video can range from 5 things to know, text on photo, to an in-depth 10-minute docu-style video. So it really depends. Photo gallery is the same way. It kind of depends on topic, and that's why we talk about topics, and then who our target audiences are. So it really does broaden beyond just text. There's podcasts in there too. There's a bunch of different immersive storytelling techniques.
And then, thank you. And then the second question from Jenny, are there stories that hit most or all of the funnel levels?
Yeah, so we can kind of circle. Do you mean topics wise or kind of an actual story?
I'm thinking more of an actual story. And maybe it tends to hit more on passion subjects when you're talking about, tornadoes or OU football or, something like that for our readers that, if you say, tornado in the headline, you're likely to get a click regardless of if you're a subscriber or not. I'm just curious if there are some things that we find that would be read by large chunks of all of the portions of the funnel.
Yeah, so I mean, as we talk about this and we talk about our audiences, it's kind of all about who we're targeting. So something like when we talked about those topics, which I can try to skip back here, like the breaking news and the crime, that's going to be read by people at all stages of the funnel, subscribers and new visitors alike. We're probably going to package and target that toward the new audience in a lot of situations, just depending on what it is. But the same thing, you might target a story toward subscribers and your new audience is going to read it. So a sports example, you might have an analysis or a column following a game or looking a little bit deeper, and you might link to it from your key takeaways from the game. You're going to get some of that new audience who's not super familiar with you, but you're probably targeting that toward your loyal readers with how you're approaching it. But yeah, every story we do is going to have readers across the funnel. It's just kind of where we're honing in our efforts.
And can I add something to that?
Yeah.
I think that it's a good mental exercise as you're reporting to think, okay, here's my story. What can I do to add to it that kind of stretches it up the funnel a little bit? A catchier headline, some better social chatter, stuff that is going to draw some more eyeballs than a traditional something might. And then also within your context, are there a few subtle key details that I can maybe throw in to really chum the water for those people who are interested in a little more? Maybe you fold that in toward the bottom of your story, so you're therefore kind of feeding some people slightly lower down in that funnel. It's stretching your content across the spectrum, even if you can do something like that with just about everything to give it a little more depth either way.
One, this is in the weeds. An easy example too is, when do you ask people to subscribe? So if something is that breaking or it's that, quick hits after a game kind of story, we're probably not going to ask people to subscribe in that story because they're new audience. Same on the other side of the coin, if we're targeting something toward hyper loyal readers, and our subscribers. We're probably not going to ask people to subscribe because we think that the majority of that audience already does subscribe. But if it were in the middle, that might be where our opportunity lies. So some of that kind of works out too. Kelly, any other questions in there? Oh, you're muted, I think.
Yeah, I was trying to find it. Darn it. No, those are all the questions. I think we're good to go here, unless others would like to unmute and chime in.
No other questions? You guys are easy, man. Josh Delaney, I'm gonna pick on him. He grilled us last time in a good way, but he grilled us. All right, well, if any comes up to you later, you can feel free to ping me, email me. We can talk about it in the next session too. So yeah, publishing content for all stages of the funnel takes effort and planning. It's not something, these are conversations we need to have on the front end of the story planning process. By the time something is written, it's too late. I do keep coming back to sports because a solid sports coverage plan for an event would have content targeted toward every stage of the funnel. And that would be on the outset before you even went into it and who was going to do it and what it was going to look like. Sports is the very good example because you have all different types of readers there. But those sports plans, they talk about like, okay, this is top of the funnel. Maybe we're making this free because it's live updates and then kind of pushing down from there. So editors too in coming days will be, talking about what do workflows look like and what does the planning process look like and what, Dish has talked about your guys' new budget and what does that look like and does it really fulfill what we need it to do? So talk with your editor about how you plan stories that target different types of readers and where you think it will be. And again, we're going to get into some more of this together, but we're all learning it together. It's a process and we're just starting and it takes experimentation too. You'll try something and it won't work and that's totally okay. Or you'll try something a couple of times and it'll work on the third time. And you just need to build audience in some of these areas. So, just start the conversation, but think about your beat and who your typical audience is and where you think you spend most of your time and what that breakdown might look like for you. So we talked a lot about the funnel today. Next time we're going to talk about who our target audiences are, what types of content they're seeking, how we define them, and really hone in on the content that we're producing to meet those needs. We talk a lot about middle of the funnel with the propensity to subscribe there, and these target audiences are also based on that. These are places where we can grow and that we think we could keep them around and they could have a propensity to subscribe, but they're not necessarily the people that we already reach. Later we'll talk about a little bit more about what moves readers to subscribe. So look at that, 9 minutes to spare. So if there are questions, you can feel free to unmute. Otherwise, Dish did send out some handouts, which we will be going over in the next couple ones. So he might have to send those out again next week as we get into those.
I can do that. The next meeting is a week from today at 10 a.m. So it'll be Zoom like this again. And we can resend those documents to track along with. I can't read it, but I was going to say, Jen's mentioned here in this last slide that there's discussion of, what content meets what part of the funnel and which audience, that sort of thing. If you haven't already, you're going to be meeting with your editor one-on-one for a look at how your August content performed, just as far as kind of some general benchmarks to see where, to see the hard data on some of your stuff and see, okay, hey, maybe this is doing better than I thought it was, or maybe not so good. And part of that is because, or as I'm learning, we as journalists are a little bit, sometimes we consume news differently than most of the general public. So there's some topics that just really take off and perform really well. And some that we need to kind of scale back and tweak or adjust and trim. So that'll be coming, and that'll play in well with those conversations. So keep an eye out for, it'll be with your editor. So myself, Ryan, Jeff, or Clyde on that. So
Yeah, and
that's all I.
I
Oh,
should
go
have
ahead.
mentioned this from the outset, but you know, I'm not gonna call Kelly a nerd, but Kelly and I are data nerds, but I'm calling me a nerd, but I'm lumping Kelly into that too. But we are journalists, you know, we have been in the day-to-day in newsrooms. This is what we love. We love local journalism, and we want to find ways to make it sustainable for years to come. We've had leadership roles in newsrooms, so we get it. We know what it's like every day. And, you know, as we have fewer and fewer resources, it's not how do we do more and more things, but really how do we make the things we do, make sure they count, and do fewer things better. And so we're passionate about data because it helps complement our gut and our news judgment, but it doesn't replace it. And so these are things that just help hone and sharpen those skills.
Sure.
All right. Well, yeah, if you have any questions, in the meantime, thanks, Mackenzie. Then go let me know. And otherwise, and we will send this deck out at the very end. We haven't sent it to the first group either because we're still seeing, you guys are a beta test. So we're fixing things as we go. But yeah, if you have any feedback or thoughts or questions, don't hesitate to shoot me an email or find me on Teams. But otherwise, you can have 6 minutes back if you're asking.
Yeah, I'll share a lot of this stuff in Teams. So this is your friendly announcement / reminder that if you're not actively on Teams or checking it regularly, you'll need to be doing so. Nolan, are you saying something? Oh,
All right.
all right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all. I'll see you soon.